I am going to talk to you about the conservation of momentum lab that you guys are working on. So when you click on the link or type in the link at the top of the lab handout, it's going to take you to this page. Unfortunately, they haven't upgraded this lab to the new HTML5 format, so it is a Flash simulation. Everybody should have Flash on their computers. It's just a matter of making sure that it runs. It does run. You may get a warning that says you need to upgrade your Flash player. Just go ahead and say try to run the lab anyway, and you may need to hit the Enable Flash button. I recommend doing the simulation in Chrome, as it will help make sure that the Flash is running correctly and it does allow you to run the lab. Now that I've gotten the lab to load, we can go ahead and go through the steps for the instructions. So we went ahead and went to the website, we hit the play symbol on the picture of the simulation, we launched it, we made sure the Flash wanted to play. Now we're going to look at clicking on the Advanced tab. That's this one up here. Right? But we do need to make sure that we are in one dimension to begin with. Right? We just want to do the one dimension first. You can play with two dimension later. Then we are going to go ahead and click on the More Data button down here. Right? The only things that we are going to change about the simulation are the masses and the x velocity. Do not touch the position. Do not touch the y velocity, right? Because we're working in one dimension, we don't need to do anything with the y velocity. We're just changing the x velocity, just changing the mass. Do not worry what those say, okay? So the first scenario, or part one, we are looking at elastic collisions. So we do want to make sure that our elasticity is 100%. And we want to look at elastic collisions between balls of equal mass. So we do need to make these equal mass. You can do this by making this 1.5 or this 0.5. It doesn't matter. You can make them entirely different. I want to make both of mine the same of 0.75. Oops. All right. So now I have equal masses. It does not matter what your velocities are to start. You do need to make sure that your ball 1 velocity is positive and your ball 2 velocity is negative, because you do want to make sure that they come in together. So you want to make a hypothesis before you play with the sim. What do you think is going to happen? Write one complete sentence on what you think is going to happen. Right? You do need to complete the first set of the table before hitting play. Right? You're going to go ahead and put in your mass and your velocity. You will see that I put a plus and a minus in your velocity just in the table, just to remind you that ball 1's velocity needs to be positive, ball 2's velocity needs to be negative initially. So you are putting in those masses. The two boxes grayed out in the total means you don't need a number there. All right, we're just looking at numbers in that last column for total. So you do find the momentum by taking this number, your mass, and multiplying it by your velocity to get your momentum. So your mass multiplied by your velocity. You will notice that that number is right here as well. All right, so these two numbers should go into your chart for the momentum of ball 1 and ball 2. To get your total momentum, remember you're going to add these two numbers together. So now we have our before the sim. To get our after the sim, we're going to hit play, let the balls crash, and hit pause. All right, it doesn't matter how long it takes for you to get to hit pause, just do it before they hit the walls. All right, so now we have the momentums after. Notice our masses stayed the same, but our velocity switched. Right? That may or may not be the case. Just be aware that that's what happened. So now you're going to put your new velocities in after the sim. So your new velocities in for your after, your new momentums for after, and make sure that you add those numbers. So you should be noticing a trend already. You're going to do this again, but now you're going to hit restart, and you're going to pick new masses. let's say I want this to be 1.25 and this to be 1.25. All right, we can go ahead and change the velocities too. Maybe I want the same velocities. Right? It doesn't really matter. I could change the velocities. I could keep them the same. Just make sure that this one's positive and this one's negative. So we hit play, let them hit, and then pause after they've hit. Right? So the before, this is your before sim data. This is your after sim data. So this is what I'm looking at for your 2 trials before and after the sim for part 1, scenario 1. For part 2, scenario 2, we're looking at what happens when we have unequal masses, right? You could have any velocities you want. We do want to make sure that these 2 masses are different. So if I have this one as 1.25, I want this one as 1.5, so they are different. Again, you're going to hit play and let them hit, and then hit pause. Before they hit, that's your initial. After they hit, that's your final. So you're going to go ahead and do this again for 2 different scenarios. And then you want to look at what is the relationship between the initial and final total momentums in both scenarios. You do want to go ahead and talk about the motion of the balls. You should be using several complete sentences when I'm asking you to describe something. Okay? Part 3, we are going to be looking at something a little bit, part 2, we're going to be looking at something a little bit different. We're going to look at different elasticities. So now we're going to change this slider here. At least one of your options need to have an elasticity of 0. That's a completely inelastic collision, which hopefully you know means the 2 objects will stick together. So you can try out anything that you want in terms of the masses of the balls, in terms of the velocities of the balls. Just make sure that at least one of your cases has an elasticity of 0. And you are going to do 3 different scenarios with that. Once you're done with all of your scenarios, you want to go ahead and describe the main ideas you learn in this activity, talking about the initial and final momentums of the collision. I am looking for complete sentences, and I am looking for at least 3 sentences to talk about what you saw. If you have any additional questions about the lab, please reach out and let me know.